shootings in just over 3 hours. One victim killed, a father with kids in the car. Now police are trying to figure out if all the shootings are connected.
The first steps towards justice after a dying veteran's calls for help were ignored by 3 nursing home workers, why only one of them faces murder charges.
Does the headline match the facts? We're comparing how Georgia stacks up to other states in the country when it comes to gun violence.
Live from Atlanta, 11Alive at 5 starts now.
3 men gunned down in 3 separate shootings. It's our lead story tonight because these men have no obvious connection to each other or to the gunmen.
Their only link is they were driving when someone inside an SUV opened fire again and again. Whomever did this is still out there tonight. Here's how the bloody night played out. At 12:15 a.m., police answered a call for help. A man was shot multiple times while driving on I-20. At 2:37, less than 5 miles away, another man shot in the neck, lost control of his car, hitting parked vehicles before crashing. He also is listed in stable condition. Less than an hour later, and 6.5 miles away, another man shot and killed just as he arrived back to his relatives' DeKalb County apartment. Naima Abdullahi is live at that final crime scene. And Naima, is this shooting and is really targeting innocent drivers at this point? Is there that belief?
Jeff, right now police are calling it seemingly random violent crimes. And right now Atlanta police and DeKalb County police are working together to put all the pieces together. Let's show you the scene where the shooting happened here near Flat Shoals Road. This is where a dad was shot as he pulled into the Brighton Village complex. Witnesses say children were in the car as someone in a silver SUV opened fire. A frantic scene right outside of this gate in DeKalb. A father killed in his car. Neighbors waking up to the sound of gunshots.
3:30 or 3:45, you heard someone say, boom, 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 boom.
I saw the car right there, and another car was behind me. I called 911.
John Franklin says he heard a car speeding off. The victim's family did not want to go on camera, but they say this has left them heartbroken. A silver SUV pulled up and shot the victim outside the gate.
A vehicle pulled up alongside the car, firing multiple rounds into the vehicle, striking the driver. One of the bullets hit him in the head, and he died on scene.
Witnesses say there were kids in the car and a pregnant woman.
They're going to be shell-shocked, man. I think they're going to be thinking about this from now on to long as they live, because they was really terrified.
The same car description connected to 2 other overnight shootings in Atlanta. As for the one in DeKalb, neighbors still horrified, worried for the pregnant woman and the kids.
She was pregnant, seen blood on her shirt.
And the victim's family has been gathering inside the complex all day, driving in and out. There are still lots of unanswered questions. Right now, we don't know the victim's name. We also don't know if DeKalb County police have been able to track down any surveillance cameras or images along this road that can give them an indication as to who committed this homicide. Any information we do get, we'll bring it to you on air and online. Reporting in DeKalb County, Naima Abdullahi, 11Alive News.
A truly horrific story tonight with a father now charged with murdering his 5-year-old son in DeKalb County. We know for parents this story can be particularly hard to hear, and some of the details are simply too graphic for us to share. But it's important for us to tell this story, one of an innocent boy and questions raised about his father's mental state. Here's Chris Hopper.
Jennifer, the details are awful. It's impossible to understand. Tonight, DeKalb police are still trying to piece all of this together.
This is 25-year-old Montrez Boyd, the father of the 5-year-old child DeKalb police say he murdered at this home on Rocky Pine in Lithonia Wednesday night.
He had bludgeoned the child to death with a shovel.
Police say the story only gets worse.
After he did kill the child, he buried the child in the backyard.
Police say that's when the boy's mother and grandmother returned home. The grandma's 4 other children were inside.
When the grandmother and the mother arrived back to the house, they told the grandmother that Montrez had killed the 5-year-old. The mother discovered that the child was in the backyard, and she went back there and dug the child up with her bare hands.
Police say there are reports Boyd had psychological issues. He and the boy's mother lived in California. Police say they drove into town Tuesday to visit their son. The boy had been living with his grandmother for at least a couple of months.
It was just heartbreaking.
This neighbor, who did not want to be identified, watched all of it unfold just steps away.
She came out the house hollering and screaming, and she was holding something in her hand, which I thought it was a baby she was rocking.
Tonight, bikes, kids' toys, and a little bit of police tape are scattered across the yard. A story just too unbelievable to comprehend. And we've just learned that Boyd's first appearance in court will be at 6 o'clock tonight. He's charged with malice murder. And we've also learned that he's been arrested before. The wild details of an incident in Arizona last year, tonight at 6.
He was the first to know and had the ability to bring life-saving measures and did nothing to help at that point.
It is one of our top stories of the year so far, reaching more than 5 million people online. Now 3 nursing home workers are facing charges after they were caught on camera laughing as a World War II veteran slowly dies in front of them. It was 11Alive reporter Andy Parati's investigation, uncovering the hidden camera video and the video depositions as the workers changed their stories that led police to investigate. There's been plenty of outrage over this story on social media. One question that people have is, why only one of the workers is charged with felony murder? Tonight, Andy Parati is asking the DeKalb County District Attorney that very question.
We would not be able to prosecute this case without that video.
DeKalb County District Attorney Sherry Boston discusses the most important piece of evidence used to indict 3 former nursing home employees this week. It's video which captured all 3 ignoring 89-year-old James Dempsey begging for help when he slowly stopped breathing in 2014.
And those videos, in my mind, leave no doubt as to what happened in this case.
This week, a grand jury indicted 2 nurses and a nursing aide with charges related to neglect and trying to conceal Dempsey's death. But only Lois Ageman, a former nurse, is charged with felony murder. Boston says it's because Ageman is the only person Dempsey articulated to he needed help.
Based on those facts and circumstances, we believe that Ms. Ageman is the most culpable because she was aware that he was crying and asking for help and told him, don't push that call button again. She was the first to know and had the ability to bring life-saving measures and did nothing to help at that point.
Do you think that will stick?
I do. We would not indict the case if we didn't think we had the evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
The DeKalb County Sheriff's Office says the nursing home employees have not turned themselves in yet. Ageman faces up to a mandatory life sentence if convicted. Andy Parati, 11Alive News.
I'm meteorologist Chris Holcomb from the 11Alive Storm Trackers. We not only broke a record today, we obliterated it. Look at this. Our high temperature today was just 1 degree away from 80. We topped off at 79. It was a mild start to the day with lows near 63. And as you know, that's way above where we should be for this time of year. We should be having highs in the upper 50s today and lows in the 30s. But look at the record, 74 degrees. That was set in 2003. So we didn't just barely break the record, folks. We went 5 degrees above the record with that high of 79. And it's still warm out there right now. We're at 78 degrees here in Atlanta. We have some 80s on the south side. Stay with us. We'll let you know if we have additional record-breaking or record-tying temperatures ahead. We'll talk about that a little later.
Looking forward to it, Chris. Thank you. Well, after struggling to get on the podium for a couple of days now, Team USA broke through in a big way, maybe none bigger than the U.S. women's hockey team. Cheryl Preheim joining us now live from Pyeongchang, South Korea. And Cheryl, they beat the Canadians last night. Very exciting and something that was a really long time coming.
They waited 20 years for this moment. It had to be one of the most thrilling wins in history for Team USA. They beat Canada 3-2 in a shootout. For 3 straight Olympics, Canada had beat Team USA. Not this time, and oh, it felt so good.
We move on to round 6. Barbara moving in on Travenas. She beats and scores! That's as good as you're going to see anywhere.
It's called Oops, I Did It Again, and done it thousands of times around tires the last 4 years.
Must beat Rooney to keep Canada's hopes alive. She's stopped! The United States will score!
You just got to take it one player at a time, and to look over at the bench and see my whole team supporting me, like just saying one more and we got this, made it easier.
Gold medal save.
First time since 1998.
It's almost
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I can't say enough how proud I am of this group. You know, we've battled so hard. We've talked about it with the media for the last 4 years. We've battled since Sochi.
Olympic champions, United States of America.
We wanted the gold medal, and they battled hard, and it was an amazing game.
To walk away here today, Olympic champions, I'm so proud and honored.
Did you see this? A Canadian player is taking a lot of flack online after she took her silver medal off immediately after she received it. After she calmed down a little bit, Jocelyn Larocque said she was just so disappointed she didn't win gold. The Hockey Association had pulled her aside, told her, come on, you got to be a good sport. So let's stay on this U.S. upsetting Canada theme for a moment. Team USA curling shocked the world this morning. They advanced to the curling finals, beating Canada 5-3 in the semifinals. Canada had won 3 straight Olympic golds. The U.S. had never won an Olympic semifinal. They'll play Sweden for gold in the early hours of Saturday morning. And then in primetime tonight, women's figure skating, our last chance to enjoy Americans Brady Tennell, Mirai Nagasu, and Karen Chen. The Russians are favored, but there's something about Olympic women's figure skating that is just always must-see TV. Coming up at 5:30, I'm going to show you a group of Atlanta people all in one spot we found here in Olympic Park, and they are having the time of their life. And Jennifer, we've got some momentum here. Team USA has won 9 medals in the last 24 hours.
I know, we're stepping things up, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Speaking of stepping things up, let's take a look at the medal count. Norway still leading with 35, but we're in 4th place now with 21. Don't forget to follow Cheryl on Facebook and Twitter for exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the athletes at the Winter Games in Pyeongchang.
There are no medals for 4th place.
No.
What makes you convinced that Carlton Gary is innocent?
Carlton Gary is not a cold-blooded psycho killer.
Could an innocent man be executed? Our chief 11Alive investigator looks into new evidence that could prove the wrong man has been incarcerated. So, is Georgia about to put an innocent man to death? Carlton Gary was known as the so-called stocking strangler who terrorized Columbus, Georgia 4 decades ago, but recently uncovered DNA evidence cast doubt on Gary's guilt in some of these killings. 11Alive chief investigator Brendan Keefe has unearthed long-hidden audio recordings from a woman who always believed another man was the real serial killer.
I know the word fear now. We're definitely facing another killing.
These tapes have been hidden away for 38 years.
He surprised the victims during the middle of the night, dressed in black with the ski mask and gloves. I knew the person who was going around killing these women.
A housewife shared her darkest fears with a pocket recorder in 1980.
no killings since '78.
After 7 older women were raped and murdered in their Columbus homes by the stalking strangler. Carlton Gary was arrested in 1984 and sentenced to death for 3 of the murders in 1986.
Just 3 hours before he was scheduled to die, the Georgia Supreme Court halted Carlton Gary's execution. Tests showed that DNA found at the scene of one of 3 murders he was convicted of was not his.
The DNA absolutely, to a scientific certainty, excludes Mr. Gary as her rapist.
He's a robber. He's an admitted robber and thief.
And he takes nothing.
And he takes nothing from any of these women.
11Alive.com investigator Jessica Knoll and I listened to more than 2 hours of recordings made by the housewife, Renata Solomon, while the killer was on the loose.
If he's not planning anything at the present time, I should be very wrong. I would be willing to bet that there'd be another lady dead by the end of this month.
Wow. I would be willing to bet that there'll be another lady dead by the end of this month.
Believe it or not, he said there has been another killing.
Can you rewind that?
The Mary Sue Butler Ogletree. My God, they found her. She was viciously stabbed. Her throat had been cut, but she had not been strangled.
Wait, hold on a second.
I had been right that there was, after 2 years, another killing.
Because I know the killer. I know the monster. I've recognized, and he was protected.
Renata Solomon is alive and well, but the 77-year-old is still haunted by what happened to her friends and neighbors 4 decades ago.
Beautiful homes here, but they give me the creeps. It's tough. I feel uneasy, and I think about the victims. And
she's taking us on a tour of a Columbus that exists now only in her memory.
0.3 miles, you're going to turn left on Wells Drive.
Left on Wells.
What makes you convinced that Carlton Gary is innocent?
Carlton Gary is not a cold-blooded psycho killer. No.
Carlton Gary wrote 11Alive this letter pointing out the fingerprints that police produced with no photographs of where they were found, shoe prints that don't fit him, and a bite mark on a victim that doesn't match his teeth.
How does Carlton Gary know there's elderly women in these houses?
Right.
If he's the killer.
Somehow I knew there would be another killing. I've been in constant fear. I carry a gun with me to and from work. Between the time I get home and Ash gets home, I sit there with a gun.
This is a housewife in Columbus now suddenly packing heat because she's in that much fear.
And then sits with a gun by herself until her husband comes home.
She sits in the house with a gun because she's so afraid that the killer knows she knows who he is.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty chilling.
Yeah.
He's a walking time bomb, I think.
Renata called detectives back in 1980 to say she suspected her landscaper, a man named Lee Baird.
Lee was the perfect suspect for what the people call Columbus Strangler.
With no evidence other than the suspicions of a housewife, police focused instead on Carlton Gary.
Everything was kept hush-hush because they didn't want to throw the town in panic. But it is my chores to come up and say, well, there's another madman on the loose.
This is School Superintendent Burns, where he was murdered.
The superintendent was murdered 2 doors down from where Lee lived?
Yes.
That 1992 murder recently ended in the acquittal of the accused killer.
After 2 trials.
Renata's landscaper, the victim's neighbor, was never a suspect in the superintendent's death.
The only fact we know for sure is that Renata has convinced herself she knows the real killer.
Renata fled Columbus in fear decades ago, returning in 2010. She contacted a local judge who wrote to the DA, according to her, Mr. Lee Baird, who recently died, was involved in the murder and other murders, and she has kept this information to herself for years.
There's 2 possibilities, and only 2. This man was indeed a killer, or he's completely innocent, and there's this housewife consumed, obsessed that he's the killer.
We're definitely facing another killing. Maybe they believe me then.
3 men are in prison for the murders. The 1980 killing of Mary Sue Ogletree was pinned on somebody else, and police said it did not fit the stranglings. The Columbus strangling case file is still sealed because police say that Carlton Gary still has a chance to appeal before his execution.
A local developer is putting families first before starting a new project in the Piedmont Heights area of Atlanta. Pace's Properties is working with Action Ministries to find permanent housing for more than 50 families who live at the in-town suites on Piedmont Circle. Pace has bought the property and plans to develop a new boutique hotel, but not before helping those who have called the suites home for more than a year.
We'll customize the plan for each family to make sure that they have the resources that they need to not only move, but to gain independence. That's what this is all about. We want to help families improve their quality of life so that they can move from this week-to-week arrangement to something that's going to be a long-term fix for their family.
Pace's property will pay for things like security deposits, moving expenses, and even rental assistance. And this is all familiar ground for Action Ministries. They're a nonprofit that helped find homes for 2,100 people in Georgia last year.
That property is very close to 11Alive. We're very familiar with such difficult environments that many families have to weather through there. All right,
and
Chris?
Speaking of weather, we are dry right now. We broke that record today. We've been watching a few showers that were trying to push into northwest Georgia. They faded out as expected, but there's more rain out to the west. I'll let you know if any of that will make it into our area coming up.
A man drops his wallet at the register. What would you do? Well, probably not what this guy does.